Moving members of the congregation to action is the third function of sermons according to Rzepka and Sawyer. These are the sermons that deal with contemporary issues in the larger world, the social action sermons. Who remembers the sermon Vince Pawlowski gave us on April 10 this year? A couple of hands, good. He entitled it Sacred Waters, and he announced the 40-40-40 for Earth Challenge, in which we joined in a goal of getting 40% of UU congregations to each get 40 people to take some kind of action related to water for 40 days starting on April 17th. Building a loving community is the fourth function, Rzepka and Sawyer list. Exemplifying this type of sermon is the one Dory Class presented last October. And she said, and I'm going to quote Dory, "Our UU ancestors and founding mothers and fathers had big, impersonal dreams that led them to take actions that paved the way for the spiritual alternative that is Unitarian Universalism. I am uplifted by the fact that we have 7 guiding principles that matter, especially if we are committed to knowing them and holding ourselves accountable to living in alignment with them. That is when each of us, in our own way, will experience our faith in action. I believe the guiding principles teach us how to begin in love. Coupled with a shared, collective, impersonal dream, they are powerful. And honoring them will assist us to build our local and the global community with soul." Well, we're halfway through that list of what sermons are for. They heal, tend the institution, move us to action, build a loving community. Next on the list are inspirational sermons. These leave us with renewed hope, or gratitude, or compassion, or courage. In January last year, Barbara Gates talked to us about forgiveness. She said, and I'm quoting Barbara, "Here we are ringing in 2010, many of us making resolutions and looking forward. And as we do so, let's not worry too much about giving up chocolate or working out every other day. Let us instead add to our annual lists a desire to forgive ourselves and one another for the sad mistakes of the past, remembering that none of us is without some injury. And let's remember that every morning is new. Every morning life could be different. Let's celebrate the opportunity that this morning brings." The sixth function of sermons is to teach our religious tradition or introduce us to other traditions. In January 2009, Reverend Susan gave a sermon called The UU Way. In it she stated, and I'm quoting from Susan, "I explored other paths, such as Sikhs, yoga, Aikido and Tai Chi, transcendental meditation, Buddhist meditation, chanting, and nature. And in the end, I came back to Unitarian Universalism having never really left." What a great variety of paths, and Susan found they all were part of Unitarian Universalism. Well, What more UU appropriate function could there be than the seventh one from Rezepka and Sawyer? Intellectual stimulation. Adrian Corporal gave us one such sermon in November last year. Is philosophy dead? He asked. Let me quote from it to remind you of the intellectual challenge it embodies. And I'm quoting Adrian now. I have now come to the core of my talk, because if there really is a final theory of everything, then philosophy is no longer necessary. It is dead, finally conquered by science. This point of view is forcefully expressed in a book, The Grand Design, by two eminent physicists. They claim to have found a theory that explains how the universe, plus all its laws, created itself by necessity. And hence, a creator God is no longer needed. He, like philosophy, is also dead. Last on the list are three functions rolled into one: to startle, awaken, or amuse. In our case, we have sermons that consist mainly of poetry readings or skits in which young people from RE participate. Maybe you remember the Valentine's Day sermon during which Reverend Joy distributed candy, or the Palm Sunday sermon during which he distributed Chinese finger traps, like this, as a reminder of the need to sometimes let go of struggle. You may know that the harder you pull and struggle to free your fingers, the tighter they grip. But if you relax and stop pulling, voila, they come off easy. So, in light of these 8 functions, why keep old sermons? Remember, we have a feeling of loyalty to those who preached them, and old sermons are a resource for future preachers. Could old sermons also be a store of knowledge, the way books in our library are? Well, I remember the comment of one of my friends here that sermons seem, and I'm quoting now, sermons seem polished but lack content. If there's little content, could old sermons really be a store of knowledge? I think they are. They store knowledge of a congregation, its values, and its concerns. Old sermons reflect the conscience and the culture of the congregation. When I read through the old sermons and realize the lofty goals they have set out to accomplish and encourage us to accomplish, I feel proud to be part of this congregation. Besides, as Rezepka and Sawyer say, sermons must address themes that arise out of human lives. There are human themes that are always relevant, like healing and congregational identity and gratitude and diversity and love. These are what our sermons deal with Sunday after Sunday, year after year. So old sermons are just as relevant as recent ones. I have a dream for this congregation. I dream that every week ideas from the sermon will be the main topic of conversation at the coffee hour. I have a dream that sermons, recent and past, will be used as subjects for finding heart groups. You know, when she was first called, Susan did that. There were 95 copies made of her 4th sermon entitled Welcoming Diversity, because she used it as a reference for workshops and small group meetings over the next 2 years. I have a dream that our next permanent minister will encourage the same lasting interest in sermons, both from the guests as well as from the minister. I have a dream that past sermons, both from guests and the minister, will be frequently quoted and their ideas elaborated on and developed in future sermons. I have a dream that our sermons will last for decades, and the copies in that binder will become finger-worn from the many times people refer to them. Sermons that last for years. Sermons that last.